tonight, Agnes and myself will be co-hosting this program on just tips for genealogy and things that are offered at the library, which Agnes will address, and then other little non-traditional and other places that you might not have thought of if you ever do family history and genealogy that have come in handy when I've been doing some search for my family and other people in the cemeteries and so forth. So as far as announcements, I'll turn it over to Agnes now, and she can talk about her portion of the program about doing family genealogy from the library point of view.
Okay. See if I can share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yay. Oh, okay. Well, I'll go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to talk about genealogy and local history resources available through your library. Wait, it didn't go anywhere. There it goes. Okay, so I want to very briefly talk about the history of the library. The Lumpkin County Library was founded by the Dahlonega Women's Club in 1917, and I believe it was located in the Hall House to begin with. The library's been in several locations throughout the years, and it's continued to serve its community for more than 100 years. The library was most recently located adjacent to the Lumpkin County Administration Building on Courthouse Hill, and last year, in February 2020, the library moved to its current location at 56 Mechanicsville Road. And if you haven't been in, it's a lovely facility. So, as many of you probably already know, your library card is a passport to educational, informational, and recreational materials. The library really does have a lot of free physical and digital resources available to anyone, and all you need is a free library card. So, if you don't already have one, it's pretty easy to apply for one. You can go to the libraries, you can fill out online an application at gapines.org. That's also the website for the card catalog, so you can see what's available in Pines. You just click the button, apply for a Pines library card, fill it out, and then you have to just come in person, show us your ID and something with your address if you don't already have it, and get you your permanent library card. So it's a pretty easy process. A library card is free to those who live, work, or go to school in Georgia. So it's pretty flexible. We're wide open. And now we'll actually dive into the genealogy and history resources. We'll start with the online resources, since a lot of us have been having to do mostly online. I mean, we're slowly getting back to in-person, which is fantastic. But if you want to do online, there's quite a lot of options. This is a picture from our website, the library's website, chestatlibrary.org. All you have to do is scroll down to the reference section, and you can click on online genealogy to see all of the electronic reference, see the links to the different genealogy websites we have there, or databases. If you click on Lumpkin genealogy there, it's going to take you to a list of all the available special collections that are physically housed in the library. So when you click on the link for online genealogy, you'll see all of these listed on the website. Ancestry Library Edition and Family Search are two really large genealogy databases. Please note that Ancestry Library Edition is the only one on the list of resources we have where you have to be in the library. You have to be physically on one of our computers. You can bring your own computer, hook into our Wi-Fi network, and the Wi-Fi does reach out to the library's parking lot, so you can sit in your car and do genealogy if you get really desperate, I suppose. The library is also an affiliate for Family Search. We have access to more materials on site. I can't give you a really comprehensive list, but if you're on Family Search and you're not able to see something, you may be able to access it by coming into the library or hopping on our Wi-Fi network again. The really good thing about Family Search is it's completely free. It is a huge collection of resources. It has, of course, the usual census records and, marriage records and things like that. But it also has a lot of digitized family and local history books. Not everything on Family Search has been indexed, meaning it's searchable, but it's been digitized. There's actually a section for images, and you can look at items that haven't yet been indexed, and you may very well find something you're looking for in there. It's one of the first places I look if someone's looking for a genealogy or local history book. It really is. Fold 3 primarily contains United States military records, but it also has a Native American collection and some newspapers. And one particularly notable example of the newspaper is the Atlanta Constitution from 1868 to 1923. So it has full issues for that date range. Heritage Quest is available through Galileo and contains U.S. Census records, Indian Census rolls, local history books, historic maps, and more. So Heritage Quest is available through Galileo, and you can have access to Galileo with your library card. You'll need the current password. If you call the library with your library card number, we can give you the password over the phone, or you can come in person. Let's see here. Oh, and I'll briefly talk about the Georgia archives. I think Chris was going to mention something about them too. So all I'll say is Georgia Archives has got some of their records digitized. A lot of them pertain to Georgia history. One thing to mention is they've got a list of all the Georgia militia districts, the historic militia district names and numbers and what county they used to be part of. So that's pretty handy. They've also got marriage records. They've got, drawing a blank, a lot of Confederate census, or not Confederate, Confederate records as well. So they've got quite a bit. Briefly, the Digital Library of Georgia is a great place to look for historical newspapers, including some of Dahloneg's older newspapers. The Digital Newspaper Archives is a link to various Dahlonega and Dawsonville newspapers that have been digitized. Dawsonville a few years back got all of theirs just digitized, so they're on the website 1879 to 2012. So it's a pretty good collection there. Galileo is a collection of databases through the University System of Georgia, and it contains Heritage Quest, Ancestry Library Edition, Full 3, among some others. So going back to the first page I showed you, if you click on the link for Lumpkin genealogy, it takes you to a page where all of this information is displayed. This is the list of all the special collections, microfilm, and other resources available at the library. So all of this is the things that are physically housed at the library. The collections are typically named for the individuals who compiled the research notes and documents. And by far the largest collection we have is the Madeline K. Anthony collection. And if you don't know her, and I hope you probably know her, Madeline was a tireless advocate for the preservation of Lumpkin County's history, and she was one of the driving forces behind the creation of the Gold Museum, which at that time was the old courthouse. Her collection is full of information on the gold rush, local families and buildings, and really a lot more. Magdalene Christian Crowell collection and the Ruth Rogers Williams collections are both family genealogies for the most part. The Lorenzo Dow Davis collection contains land lottery records and weaving patterns. And the Benjamin Gaillard collection contains materials belonging to or pertaining to the Gaillard family, which include his daily diaries and ledgers and a family Bible. So we've got quite a lot of special collections here, and there are more incoming once they get sorted, finally. And we also have a list of all of our microfilm on the website, so you can click there and see we've got newspapers, we've got Confederate pension applications, court records, And the other resources, I'll point out the Lumpkin County Family File list. That's the first place I look if someone says they're looking for a particular family name. It tells me in which of our special collections we've got files on different families. And the genealogy vertical files, I'll also mention that one has a lot of local history information. So it's not necessarily families, it's more places and events in Lumpkin County. Oh, I forgot I had arrows. Look at that. I was like so prepared and I forgot I did the thing. So we're just going to move on. So these are some images for what they look like. The left picture, that's a picture of some of the Madeline K. Anthony collection. So they're in archival boxes and folders, and they're only accessible by staff members. We'll pull the files you want to look at. We hold on to a license or a library card. We'll give you one folder at a time, and you can go through and see what you can find. There's really a ton. The Georgia vertical files I mentioned, that's what's in the middle, so it's got a lot of subjects, and the picture on the right is what some of the family files look like. And all that's listed on the website. So if you haven't been into the library, this is a picture of the genealogy room. Ta-da! So it is, sorry, get back to my notes. It contains 2 tables, a microfilm reader, and many books dedicated to genealogy and local history. We also have a limited selection of books from other states, but it's mostly Georgia because that's just the focus of where we are. Books shelved in this room with a reference sticker may not circulate, but we often have multiple copies of the same book with the intent of one of them circulating. And when you first walk in and look to your left, you'll see the microfilm cabinets and the microfilm reader. The microfilm cabinets, I talked a little bit about it. It has census records, court records for Lumpkin County, some Gainesville newspapers, and Lumpkin County newspapers as far back as the 1870s. We're talking consistently as far back as the 1870s. There are a few issues as early as 1832, but they're pretty scattered. They're not complete by any means. So just past the microfilm collection, the whole left wall is basically Lumpkin County genealogy and history. It first contains the marriage and death indexes, and they've been updated to include information from the Nugget through 2019, so it's pretty up to date. You can also see library scrapbooks. I actually found a lot of these when we were moving. There was a lot of things we found that we didn't know we had when we moved. So all the scrapbooks are here, and you can check out the library's history in pictures and articles. It's 1978 to present. We do still keep up with the scrapbook. And let me see. I didn't take as many pictures as I should have, so I'm just going to have to talk and you're going to have to picture. The next bookcase. Wait, is that right? Hold on. Yeah. The first bookcase there, the picture on the left has the Georgia Rube Index, which is the physical list that's on the website as well. So it's the printed version of what's listed on the website, all the collections, the microfilm, the maps, so on and so forth. Looking at the Lumpkin County section, this is everything related to Lumpkin County. I usually point out a few books when people are looking for the history. The history of Lumpkin County, the first 100 years, 1832 to 1932 by Andrew Kane is here. We have several sets of the I Remember Dahlonega series by Ann Amerson. And we also have a 2-volume set of Deaths, Murders, and Lynchings, which is a compilation of obituaries and death notices from old Dahlonega newspapers. We also have college yearbooks for University of North Georgia or North Georgia College, whatever name it's been throughout the years. As far back as the 1940s. We do have a few high school yearbooks as well, mostly from like the 60s. When I say a few, I mean like 6 or 7, so not very many. We have more college yearbooks and high school yearbooks. And let's see. So also in the room, we've got periodicals for things like the Georgia Backroads. We do have those. And we also get the Georgia Genealogical Society Quarterly that comes out 4 times a year typically. We also have, and this is where I didn't take enough pictures, past the Lumpkin County sections, a bookcase with brochures and handouts related to genealogy and local history, and they're free to take. Anything on the bookcase is free to take. It's where I also have some genealogy to go packets. So it's basically if you want to get started with genealogy, but you don't know where, you can just grab a packet and take it home with you. It talks a lot about online resources and just the process of getting started with genealogy. And also in the genealogy closet, we've got a maps collection. So again, the index is on the website. It's organized by subjects. So the drawer A is all related to gold mining. And we've got a ton of maps in there, including one donated by Chris Worick, which gets looked at all the time. It really does. People are looking for where gold mines were in Georgia. We typically have maps that show locations. And again, all these items require staff intervention. Just everyone here at the library has been trained to pull materials. So if I'm not around, someone else can pull it for you. They're just going to ask you for your ID or library card, and you can look at the materials. And that's me. I'll turn it over to Chris now.
This is where I thought I left off. So before you start going digging for your ancestors, take a quote from Sergeant Joe Biden, just the facts. Because facts will help you develop a timeline for the person or persons that you're looking for and help dismiss rumors. Because there's a lot of old folklore in families, that old, Uncle Joe, he used to live over here and he was shacked up with a couple women and so on. So, it's like, is that stuff true or not? You hear all these stories. So if you can establish what's true and what's not, then you can kind of help develop your timeline, such as when was a person born and when did they die? Those are very critical because now you can, fill in your parameters. Were they married? Maybe more than once? Did they have any children? What were their occupation, their occupations? Places that they may have lived or property? Did they have military service or religious affiliation? All these can help when looking for certain records and in different places of the world too, as I'm finding. This is what I was talking about, establishing your search parameters. So once you've got your start point, which would be someone's birth date, and then your death date, which is your end point, you can try to fill in the middle right there, what happened from that person's life. The one thing I have found is that, sadly, a lot of times in someone's obituary, that kind of gives a really good synopsis of what that person did. The more prominent the person, the bigger write-up that person is going to have. So that's always a good place to find information. Here's some of the traditional sources: local libraries, cemeteries, county courthouses, museums, historical societies, universities, and so on. And they contain many original documents and possibly old photos, which you may or may not be searching for. Sometimes you just trip upon things and just wonder, what the heck is that?
Hi.
And then these are just a little bit more explanation about traditional resources and some of the things that you may find located within. County courthouses, I seem to think, don't get used as much or are overlooked for their potential, because a lot of times, when land records come into play, those things can get really tricky, especially with the chain of custody. I have yet to find a consistent chain of custody on any property or town lot or anything in this county since I've been doing research. For some reason, you'll have one person's name, and then the next time it'll be somebody completely different that is purchasing that property. It's like, well, what happened to the old one there? So I don't know, maybe they died, they had to sell it, and it wasn't recorded. Don't know. Museums and historical societies, such as us, usually, no matter where you go, or even a library, everybody always has a go-to person in that county. I've called different libraries looking for stuff, especially when I was working on my free gym story about out in California. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to refer you to one person. Like, oh yeah, that's the one person that knows all the history of the area. They've been living here forever. Their family goes back a couple of generations. There's always one go-to person that has that, you know, in their memory banks, basically. So that's always something to remember, is not just counting on the normal resources, but trying to find those people that are the smart ones there that have that information. And fraternal and civic organizations, I did not know this. Our Masonic Lodge, for example, and I'm sure other ones, actually keep records that go back to the founding of their lodge. In our case, this Blue Mountain Masonic Lodge here in Dahlonega was founded in 1847. Their records go back to 1847. And I have found some interesting annotations in some of their meetings that mention some of the people that have lived here in town. And in some cases, when they passed away, it talked about that they gave their brother this big send-off, and you know, they had like a, what they call it, something of honor, or tribute of respect, a tribute of respect, which basically talked about, you know, that person's life and what they did and so on there. So those are other places that you might find information on someone. Last one at the very bottom in red. Have your county lines ever changed, which can affect your search? I mentioned this a couple months ago when I was talking about the Revolutionary War veterans I had been searching for. Lumpkin County is a perfect example because White and Dawson County did not exist when Lumpkin County was first established in 1833. We bordered Forsyth and Habersham counties. So when these people move from one place to another, you need to know if they're buried, it might be in a different county because the county lines changed at some point. So that's always important to keep in mind also. Then we came to the internet. And so now we get digitized research. And you can just sit from the comfort of your home here and listen to me talk to you about this. Internet research, and this is some of the things that Agnes had talked about. Find a Grave Census, Family History Center at Ellis Island, which is online, has a great database of people that have arrived there over the years. Ship manifests, Google Books and patents. And this, the thing about the internet research and websites is that it's changing and updating itself all the time. The bad thing is that I'm finding a lot of these people are getting smart and wanting money. A lot of these, it's run by the Latter-day Saints Church. If you look at who the underwriter, who it is, a lot of these pay for information type sites, it's all run by the Latter-day Saints, so such as Census Online, Find a Grave, and things like, or not Find a Grave, but Chronicling America. The Fold 3, I believe, is also another one. But there's many of them there that, you know, you can get limited information. That's how they try to get you to start paying, because they'll tease you with little tidbits, little crumbs, and then that's as far as you can go. You can't get the whole, you know, picture of that page that you're looking for because they want you to pay for it. So that's another reason to visit your library, because they have the library edition of Ancestry. So that way you can actually see and make copies of some of these good documents. Whoops, Find a Grave. This is an interesting one, because if you've never used Find a Grave, it's a great way to find missing relatives that you didn't know existed and where they may be buried. This is an example. This is my great-great-great-grandfather, Charles Worick, who's buried in Iola in Allen County in Kansas. And what can we learn from him? If you go on this, people have put in information about him and then his spouses and his children. So Charles Worick had been married 3 times, and then these were all his children. And if they're highlighted in the kind of teal color blue right there, you can actually, when you would go on to the Find a Grave website and type in Charles Worick, if you click on any of these children or one of his wives, it will pop up and show you who they were married to and maybe how many children they have and where they're buried at. So it's kind of like a big network, like tentacles. It's really interesting to try to find this, and you can actually go back or go forward in time when you're trying to track down where people migrated from. Census records, obviously those are very informative. However, the first federal census being done about 1790 it wasn't that great. It just basically, the censuses used to just typically list the number of people in the household, maybe what the occupation was in that person. It wasn't really until 1850 that the first by person living under one roof name of each individual was listed there. So prior to that, it's kind of hard to track where people were at unless you're using some other type of source. And this is obviously what census records can tell us. And where can these clues lead us? To other records. Newspapers. This is probably one of my primary sources that I use when doing research for genealogy. This one is Chronicling America, and this is a database of United States newspapers dating back to the 1700s, actually 1690 to the present, according to this. And they're from all different states. Now, granted, it's not every individual newspaper. It's only the ones that people have digitized so far. But like I mentioned before, the good thing about this is that it's always updating. So if you check something now, guaranteed within the next 6 months, year, 2 years, they're going to have more other newspapers. Might not be the ones you're looking for, but they're going to have other ones. So they're constantly adding more to their database. This is the Georgia Historic Newspapers website that Agnes had kind of talked about a little bit. And this one contains newspapers from all over the state of Georgia that you can find information on individuals, events, and places. So it's very simple. It's, you type in just a word or search phrase, which newspaper you're looking in this case, Athens, and then it can show you just different examples of what would be able to come up. So if I would type in the word like it shows here at the top, Dahlonega, it would show me down here at the bottom all the different hits and the dates and the newspaper that it was printed in. And then to the right-hand side of the screen, it would show the example of this one here. It talks about Harrison Riley of Dahlonega, which is highlighted in red because that was the word that I had searched using. And it just talks about everything, talking about Harrison Riley and consignees from Dahlonega picking up arrivals at the rail yard in Athens. And just other clues that newspapers can result in. Sheriff sales, those are always good, especially when it came to property. Could find obituaries. The obituaries are always good. If they were printed, they weren't always printed there. That's the sad thing. And then they got Galileo, and I'm not going to talk about that because Agnes touched on that already. And the Vanishing Georgia collection. This one's great because it's got a whole slew of photographs from all over the state. And if you typed in Lumpkin or Dahlonega for our area, for example, it will list every photograph and you can view them, one at a time of every photograph that is in their collection that has to do with Dahlonega. And so here's a couple examples here. You got W.B. Townsend, the publisher and editor of the Dahlonega Nugget in the top right. Matthew Stevenson down the bottom left. North Georgia College with cadets and faculty standing in front of the Price Memorial Building. And then the bottom right, the class of 1898 from North Georgia Agricultural College. Ellis Island Family History Center, I mentioned that. That has a number of great database records there for finding persons and when they arrived by ship and maybe which country they came from, and other ship manifest websites. Google Books. Sometimes you can find information about an individual doing a Google book search. Patents. This is an unusual one because sometimes you may find that your ancestor may have been an inventor and had a patent. In this case, we're looking at underlined Benjamin F. Sitton of Dahlonega, who is buried at Mount Hope Cemetery, did have a patent in 1874 for a grading and leveling instrument there. So he was kind of an engineer of sorts. Military service records. This goes back to the fold 3. This is always important to know if you're trying to get someone marked with a veteran's marker or acknowledge the fact that they did have actual military service. Typically, if they're current military discharge since like World War II, they should have a DD-214, which is your discharge record from the service. It's your service record. And this is something, if you're trying to acquire a military headstone, that funeral homes require.
My plan for the living room is to recreate the look inspired by the movie. I've got the wallpaper.
And what service records can tell us? Was that individual a regular military or a state volunteer? Physical description, military occupation, their rank, battles or campaigns, awards. Everybody likes to know about what awards they might have served. Or you talk about your battles or campaigns. Yeah, I want to know about Uncle Charlie. You know, was he really in the Battle of the Bulge, or is that he's just blowing smoke up there? You know, because there are a lot of these guys that talk about being war veterans and they did this and did that. How much time they served? Were they wounded or killed? Military discipline. Schools they may have attended, and was that person eligible for a pension? At the bottom it says many military terms will be abbreviated on records, so it may help to advise a local veterans organization to help decipher the jargon. That's important to know, because sometimes you'll find it has an abbreviation or something that people at that time might have known, but now you're like, what is that unit that they're talking about right there? Or what was that occupation? Again, full 3, this was the military records that Agnes had talked about. This one's available online. Deed or property records. I'm going to own me the best sod house out there on the plains. Typically kept in the clerk of courts in the county courtroom. You know, the great thing about Lumpkin County is that our courthouse had never burned down or had a fire. So our records are intact going back to 1833. So court records, deed records, you name it, if they've maintained it since 1833, we've got it somewhere in that building, which is great. Most people can never say that, because somewhere along the line, you always hear about, well, the courthouse had a fire and lost all the records previous to, boom, a certain year. The bad thing about it is most records are all handwritten until the 20th century. So you got to be really good about trying to decipher people's handwriting. It could be very elegant. It could be just downright sloppy. So good luck with that. Many books have an index of the grantor or grantee. So if you're looking to find out if someone purchased or sold some property, that's the thing you want to look for, is the grantor grantee index. Individual property transactions can tell us who bought when, where, and for how much. But there's not a lot of consistency when it comes to indicating if a building, a storehouse, etc., was on the property. One question that I get all the time from people calling to the Historical Society or writing in general is that, do we have any information about a house out here on this road? And I have to tell them the answer is no, because we don't maintain any records on certain houses right there. You know, that's kind of a family thing. You know, maybe we would have information about, well, it was owned by this family, but we don't really know how old it was. It's not recorded. You know, when someone builds a house, that, you know, they lay the cornerstone and it's put inside of a book somewhere to let everybody know when that was started. Sometimes it's very confusing when establishing the chain of the ownership. I found that quite a bit. eBay. You probably would never think about eBay as a place to find information about family history, but you never know. Sometimes you get lucky. In this case, some of my family members had moved out west to Kansas after the Civil War as homesteaders. And so I found this circa 1887 map of Jewell County, Kansas, which was very interesting because it shows not just the little townships within the county, but also, if you look really close, it's kind of hard to see on this map since it's big, it'll show the name of the person that owns that property there. So my ancestors, there's a couple of them, there's 3 of them on here that do own property in Jewell and in Mankato. This one I found, which was very interesting, Spanish-American War souvenir books, are like a yearbook of sorts from a souvenir for all of the Michigan units that went to the Spanish-American War. And as you see at the bottom, circled in red right there, is my great-grandfather, William W. Worick, who was in Company F of the 33rd Michigan Volunteers that went down to Cuba. So that was an interesting find. And Postcard Purchased on eBay. This one, it shows Eau Claire, Michigan, which is not far from where I grew up at. And the reason I bought this one, it was so weird because I looked at the back when I was looking on eBay, and it was addressed to Mr. Philip Worick up in Canada. Well, that was my great uncle. It was my grandfather's brother. And it was written by this guy who was a friend of his, saying that, it'd be nice to get together sometime, because you're living up there in Canada. So it's just interesting, the different things that you type in, never know what's going to come up. And found this one for a school souvenir. It actually has Ross Worick, Lyman Worick, my grandfather, listed as pupils in the school here, Tabor School in Sodus Township, where I grew up at. So never know what you might find. And now comes the question portion. I'll close this, and then Manny, we can open it up to questions.
So you all can unmute yourselves if you want. You can. It's up to you. We do have one comment in the chat. It's from Ann Converse. She says, if you plan to have both in-person and Zoom meetings in the future, the community house does not have Wi-Fi access. And I can actually answer that. We do know that. I have talked with Wade at who's in charge of the community house, basically, and all the other things in Lumpkin County, and he is actively looking at putting internet access in the community house. So it may very well happen.
I wonder if they can do that for the old jail building. Put Wi-Fi in there.
It may be possible. I haven't asked. It's been months since he's been trying on all community house. The community house would be really since we use it all the time, would be very useful to have there.
Yes.
Manny, if that doesn't work, I have to say that our wonderful new library has lots of Wi-Fi, lots of internet access, and lots of meeting room facilities, and it's free. What more could you ask for?
Right. I was just talking with Agnes about that. I haven't seen the facilities like I told you the other day. I still haven't done it, but they do have great rooms, and that's certainly a possible place. It's just the community house has been traditional place for us, but that doesn't mean we can't move if the board so decides.
We've just been waiting for the library to give everybody the green light to open those rooms up.
And that's happening now.
Pretty soon. Not right yet, but it does sound like it's coming pretty soon.
Yes, there was a talk at the library board that we will be moving into a soft opening sooner than you might expect, and full opening round about Independence Day.
Good.
And Ann just sent us a message saying that Park and Rec also has those meeting rooms.
Without wishing to run down Park and Rec, they sometimes charge societies for use of their rooms.
They do. They charge the archaeology group for sure. We're gonna try and see what the library has to offer for sure. The archaeology group. I think the historical society might be grandfathered in at the Park and Recs.
Right, because the community house is also run by the Park and Rec.
Right.
Does anyone have any questions for Agnes or myself on the program?
Be sure and put a link to this video on the website so that people can, go and find out all of this information. Because I'm sure we haven't been taking notes.
Well,
if anybody is interested in following up on their genealogical research, I've developed a certain expertise in handling some European records, which has enabled me to find my wife's ancestors back in Switzerland, who came across on Oglethorpe's second convoy. So, and I certainly know an awful lot now that I never did before about the records in England. And so if anybody's got any questions on that, I'll be very happy to help.
Well, do you have a list?
I think the important thing is not just having a list, because most of the sources are digitally available. It's a question of understanding the twists and turns in the system. As Chris said, be very careful with census records, because the transcription and the spelling is often very questionable, particularly if you're back into the mid 1800s. So it's not that I can give you the census records, but I can tell you what to avoid and what to follow up on and how things hang together.
It is true, and I've done genealogy work in Portugal, and I can easily date my ancestors back to the 1500s because they have such good records. Each record has three generations. But it is true. You have to first you have to know the language, and secondly, you have to know what they're talking about.
Mm.
So, Robin, would you like to put on a program about that? And then people can come to you for translations of whatever these words.
Well, my primary working language is English, albeit it's English. Let me think on that one.
I would offer that in the library, there's a good starter book that helped me, and it's Understanding Handwritten Documents from the 16th and 18th century, and it gives you examples of letters, the alphabet, and how they're spelled or how they're actually written in this different script, and then it shows you examples of different letters or documents for you to try to read. So it's really interesting because that helped me starting off to understand what was being written there, because certain letters look like an S, for example. That's one of the common ones, or a double S. It's like a sharp S. It's like a giant B. And we see that all the time in a lot of these old documents. And so when you start reading these things, it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you know they were writing the way it was in that time period or period in history.
It's also important to have a very good dictionary to hand, because you run into all sorts of strange terms, which when you can actually translate them into something meaningful, it's a great help. You know, I've got several ancestors who were cordwainers, and you ask yourself, what on earth is a cordwainer?
Yes. What is
Okay,
it?
what is it?
A cordwainer is a person, and we're talking 150 years ago or so, a person who makes new shoes. They don't mend shoes. They're very specialist, and it's the upper end of the shoe business.
Okay.
I'll think about it, Robbie. I'll think about it.
Okay. I think that would be fascinating.
Yeah.
Especially with little tidbits like that.
Yes. My I have one distant relation by marriage who subsequently married Brigham Young.
Oh,
So I've got some American connections too. I'll think about it. What I found out in studying my family.
Very good.
That would be fun.
Next month's program, since Greg isn't here, like I said, we will have our June program. It'll be on Thursday, June 10th, 7 p.m. at the community house. Masks are optional, but you know, as you saw the new guidance today from the CDC, that if you've had both your COVID shots, you're not required to wear a mask anymore. But But Greg Shepard will be giving a program on the history of the Consolidated Gold Mining Company. So I know this is something he's been working on for many years, and so it'll be a really interesting program, I'm sure, because he's going to have a lot of photographs and updates as far as what they have uncovered in parts of the mine since they have been cleaning it and draining it out recently. So we'll look forward to that next month. So if no one has any more questions, thank you for coming tonight, and we look forward to seeing everybody in person next month.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.